Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. Thank you so much, my pretend audience. Alrighty, thank you so much, my pretend fans and my real listeners. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I know that I did for a variety of reasons. Just off the top, not sure if you heard, but the Tennessee Volunteers took down the Crimson Tide of Alabama for the second time in 3 years, two times in a row now in Knoxville. And that now means in consecutive weeks, after falling to an underrated Arkansas team, I've said that about them all year. After falling to an underrated Arkansas team on the road, which was a bad performance, we have now beaten in back-to-back weeks the Florida Gators and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I know Florida sucks, and I know it was a tight game, and we barely got by them. But if you're a Tennessee fan, you know that none of that matters. What matters is that in back-to-back weeks, the Vols have beaten the Gators and the Tide now, and we are at, I believe, at 6-1 now. We're back up to number 7 in the country, and right back in that SEC and national championship race. I think there's probably like a 5-way tie atop the SEC right now, which that will straighten itself out. We still have to go to Georgia, and Lord knows that's not going to be easy. That was another interesting element, but we'll dive into all of that. Georgia, I still don't. If you listen to my podcast Friday, still couldn't wrap my head around how they were a 5-point underdog. And that's something else that we're going to dive into a lot in this episode. But also, one good chunk of money this weekend. And my little man's 6U team is now, we've now won like 3 in a row, I think. I think that puts us at 5-2. And so we're currently either in second or third place, but either way, we've got one more regular season game left. We won our homecoming game this week and won it pretty handily. And now we've got one more regular season game left. And then apparently we have the playoffs after that, which I did not realize this until about a week ago. And as some of you may know, I scheduled a trip for a couple of weeks after his season ended. Well, now, as it turns out, we might be playing in the championship game that week. So, I'm probably going to either just go ahead and cut my trip short by a day, or maybe just wait and see how that game plays out on the Saturday before, if we win that playoff game, and if I'll even need to. But obviously, I hope that we will win, because if my little man's going to be in the championship game, and plus I'm one of the coaches, I need to be there. So I will cut my trip short, as much as that kind of sucks, but yeah, it'll be fine. But anyway, lots of good stuff, and the Vols won the Titans. I'm done with them. But yeah, I really look. You know what? I'm going to take a quick break because I've got a lot of notes I need to look at and a lot of stuff, and then I'm going to be right back. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So, here's the deal. I'm done being modest about this. This is no longer just a lucky streak, or, me being, a little uncertain about whether or not I should tell people, how to bet, or, give advice on this. No, you people need to start listening to me, and I hope that you did. I hope that over the past 2 weeks, you and as many people as you know, or as you could tell about this show, have listened to the Friday episode, because in those episodes, I, for the last 2 weeks, have gone over the bets that I am likely to make, and just made a few picks. I've just started doing it the past 2 weeks, so I'm getting kind of better at it. Last week, I said one bet in specific that I loved, which was to take Georgia either on the spread or to win, but take Georgia, and then take the money line for Detroit and the Chiefs. And I hope that you did that one. I also said several other bets that I like, both in college and the NFL. And I really, really hope that you guys are paying attention to this. And look, I all along, I have a tendency to be very skeptical, even of myself, and not want to. I certainly don't want to risk other people's money, but at this point, this is a real thing. Like, I know the sport, I know the teams specifically that I bet on because I generally in college I stick to the SEC teams, I stick to the teams I know well. Um, and in the NFL, I have, well, I know the NFL really well anyway, but I have a handful of teams that I like to bet on. Some I like to bet against, some I like to bet for, which, by the way, you may have heard me say multiple times now, never bet against the Chiefs. I can't even tell you how much money I have made just by that one simple axiom. Um, just don't bet against the Chiefs, man. They will find a way to win. And we had a very interesting week. But look, I debated on whether or not to even say the any specifics, but I just want to go over. I'm going to because I actually took a few screenshots and I just want to go over just a handful of the bets that I made. Many of these that I shared with you guys beforehand on the episode on Friday. One was just the Lions to win. Um, that on the money line, I said I was a big fan of that, and Hard Rock had a boost for it where it was plus 130. So I put 50 on that. That's $115 right there. I also had just a little $25 bet for Tank Bigsby to score a touchdown in the fourth quarter of that garbage time Patriots London Jaguars London game. That was $25, paid off 125. But then the ones that I know I talked about were the Georgia, Detroit, and Kansas City one. I was hitting that one hard, and I know I said that was my favorite bet of the week. Just on that one bet, I made it across a variety of platforms, but my favorite one was on ESPN Bet, and because I was able to boost it, and just on that one, I took Georgia spread, not even the money line. Georgia +5, Detroit money line, Kansas City money line. I was able to boost it. It would have been plus 686, but because of a boost, it was plus 1,029. $20 on that made me $225. And then I made that same bet on a variety of other platforms, just utilizing profit boosts and things like that. Um, and then one of my favorite bets that I'm pretty sure I also said. Well, I didn't say specifically to take these teams, but I did share it with some friends. Well, one or two friends. I shared my bets. I've started doing that. Just texting them after I make it to some of my friends, and they've been making money off of this. And the one that I made the most on, the single bet, was there was no boost to it or anything. Actually, no, there was a profit boost because it was on Hard Rock, and they gave you a 10% profit boost. I had the Bengals -2.5. The Lions and Chiefs money line because both of those were slight underdogs, which didn't make any sense to me, and then the Colts money line. That was plus 894. So a $50 bet on that paid off $541. I made the same bet as well on that one across a variety of platforms. And then just also taking the Detroit money line to win. And as well taking Georgia. I took Georgia. Let's see, what was the one I did on Georgia? I had Georgia. Did I take them on the money line, or did I just do? I know I had one bet that was Tennessee to win money straight up and Georgia to win straight up. It was because both were underdogs. It ended up being plus 511, so a $25 bet on it paid off $152. Georgia, I made the spread plus 3.5 on one bet that I made, and I put $100 on it. It paid off 202. The one bet that I lost, and then I had a few others that were like a combination of the Colts, the Lions, and the Bengals. And then I also took the Steelers money line because I did not think they should have been an underdog. I put how much on it? I put like over $100 on it. So that one, paid off more than even because they were a slight underdog. And then there was another little bet on Hard Rock. They've had some pretty good boosts on there since I think they're new and they're trying to get new people to sign up. So that's why they do good promos and do good boosts. And one they had was the Steelers to win and over 39 points. So I put $51 on it and it paid off what 226 or something like that. Um, so it was just a variety of those bets, basically combinations of the Lions, the Chiefs, and uh, the Colts, who really had me nervous. And honestly, I might not have taken them had I known for a fact that they were planning on bringing back Anthony Richardson. I knew he was going to be healthy, but I knew that there was still a chance they might roll with Flacco, given that they're better with him. They just are. But they got things turned around in the second half, and they were able to win. I also hit another couple of first touchdown score bets with Kareem Hunt in the Chiefs game and Breece Hall in the Steelers and Jets, and we know that those always pay off really big. The Kareem Hunt one was plus 750, so a $20 bet on there paid off 170. Um, Sorry, I'm seeing something. Anyway, but the point is that the only bets that I think that I really made that I lost this week were a couple of parlays that I hit everything except Kentucky. I know that I did share that one with you guys, so I hope that wasn't the one bet that you lost on as well. But I had, let's see, I had it on my favorite of my college bets, because like I said, I generally stick in the SEC. I had, what was it? I didn't do Tennessee on that one because I was just too nervous, I think, on most of those. But I know I had Mississippi State. They were like a 20-point underdog for some reason against Texas A&M, and I've said this all year as well. I've won a lot of money on Mississippi State because, yeah, they suck, but these are still SEC games. A they're still a quality, going to beat most teams that are out of the SEC. So no, you shouldn't be expecting teams to just roll over them. Um, so anyway, I've won a lot of, but I had Mississippi State plus like 19 and a half or whatever it was. I had Georgia plus the 5. I had, what was that? What was the rest of that bet? Shit, I can't remember now. I wish I had that one. But anyway, it was like, maybe I did include Tennessee. I know I had Georgia. I know I had Mississippi State. Who else played this week? I guess I did include Tennessee on it because I know one of them was a 5-leg thing that I hit all 4 except for Kentucky, who lost to Florida. And Florida seems like maybe they're kind of getting on track now, enough to keep Billy Napier there for at least another week or so, but they have got a brutal stretch coming up. And yeah, I don't see him making it through the season. But anyway, the point is, again, I didn't even know if I was going to share because normally I don't even figure up the exact amount that I win in a weekend, but this weekend I wanted to, so I did. I ended up making $1,790 over the course of 2 days. And look, I'm not going to tell you guys that I have a system or some sort of algorithm that helps me understand this or that I'm some sort of statistical whiz, or I just know the sport. And so when I look at something and it makes sense, there are always going to be available bets out there with, 15 or 14 or however many NFL games, and God even knows how many college football games. Even if I'm just usually sticking to the SEC teams, there are going to be options out there every single week that I see, and I'm like, I like that, and I'm going to take it. And I'm usually going to combine it with other bets that I like. And it's just working. I'm not overthinking it. I'm just doing it when I see it. I'm being aggressive with my bets, and it's paying off. So, anyway, I'm not usually, one to toot my own horn, I don't think. But at this point, it's no longer just a lucky streak or just some sort of. No, I'm good at this, and I know how to take advantage of the little profit boosts and things that they do, which, those don't, well, those, they do help. I mean, if you, use them across a variety of platforms, because usually, they're going to max you out. Like ESPN usually maxes them out at $20 bets, but then you've got DraftKings, which is going to max it out at $10. Hard Rock, which honestly, they let you go up to $50 or $100 on a lot of these. And I sometimes use MGM, but my go-to continues to be ESPN Bet. It still just seems to have the consistently best odds and promos and everything since they came out. I mean, it's Disney, it's ESPN, they're going to run the world. But DraftKings generally still has the best first touchdown scorer bets, except in primetime games when ESPN does their little power hour thing. But, if you do this across a variety of platforms and you just make the same bet, taking advantage of the profit boost, you can get up to, where you're betting, what, 30, 40, 100, $150 if you're willing to do that. And anyway, you guys, I think, know at this point, I know football pretty well. And I I watch all the shows. I listen to it on the radio. Whenever it's this time of year, I am all about some football. And I'm a pretty smart person. And so it's just been working. And I'm not going to say that it's always the case, because God knows I don't get them right. I had a feeling last week. I got one that, logically I should have known and even talked to people about, but I just had a feeling that the Saints might be able to do something against Denver, who I feel like is not nearly as good as they have looked at certain times. And so the Saints were an underdog there at home. I figure I'll take them. Maybe Spencer Rattler can make some money. I was wrong about that. Or can make some magic and make me some money. I was wrong about that. So God knows, I'm not saying I get these right all the time. Not even close. But lately, the ones that especially on Saturdays and Sundays when there are so many options available, there are going to be opportunities for me to make money. And I will continue to try to do the shows on Friday where I share with you guys, which bets I like, which ones are my favorite. I know I said on last Friday's show it was the Georgia, Detroit, and Kansas City one. That one paid off really well if you did that. I know that I said take the spread with Cincinnati against Cleveland, who's just falling apart and clearly has accepted their fate as basically tanking, rebuilding now. The Colts thing I was a little nervous about, but it ended up working out for me. And then I was just very, very confident that in the Lions. I think they are the best team in the NFC. And and Kansas City is just Kansas City, man. They've got an elite defense. They've got a good running game. They've got the best quarterback in the sport. They've got maybe the best coach in the sport. I just you're rarely going to win if you keep betting, or you're rarely going to lose, rather, if you just keep betting on the Chiefs. So anyway, that's enough of me tooting my own horn. And again, I wasn't even really sure how much of that I was going to share. I'm not really comfortable generally bragging about myself, but I think this needs to be known because it's been all season. Now, I'm not saying I've been making that much all season. That's the most that I have made so far. But I know I got close to it a couple of weeks ago. And last week even wasn't a great week, but I know I still won a few $100s. And it's just, I don't know. I'm on a roll. I know what I'm doing. I finally, I feel like I've got I know the sport really well, and I think I've got a good grasp on putting together good bets and good parlays, and it's working. So I know now that I'm saying this publicly and bragging the hell out of myself, I'm probably going to start losing. But no, you know what? No, I'm not. Just keep listening to me. Keep betting. Keep doing the bets I'm telling you to make, and tell your friends about it because, man, this is awesome right now. And God knows I need it because, as many of you know, I have 2 birthdays and Christmas coming up, and my little vacation that I'm taking. So, and I have 2 very expensive birthday parties that we're doing this year. And the reason that I'm able to do these very expensive birthday parties are in large part because I've been winning so much. I've been working overtime a lot lately too, but that's about to end, which I'm actually happy about that. But anyway, the point is, I need all this money right now because I'm the only one paying for two birthday parties and most of Christmas for three kids, even though my mom does, generally come over on Christmas Eve and she brings the gifts that she gets for them and we kind of just combine them all as one Christmas morning. And that's helpful. But God knows I need this money right now. So it's not like, I'm just going to go, yeah, this is a very good time for me to be as hot as I have been betting, and I'm going to hope that it continues, and I'm going to hope that you take advantage of it as well. Tell your friends about it. If I had the time, I would maybe start putting together some of these and posting them on social media. But I'm also a little nervous about that because I was even nervous, as many of you know, sharing them just with my friends. But especially putting it out there to the world at large, because I know not that many people listen to this. So even just this is not sharing it with that many people. But yeah, I've thought about maybe starting to put together a few of my favorite parlays and posting them on social media, and maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that next week, and we'll see how it goes. And maybe this is what the podcast should become. Maybe this is what I'm really good at. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to continue to do things as we've been doing them for now. I'm going to talk about a variety of, or we're going to talk about everything that happened over the weekend in the SEC in particular, as well as in the NFL. I'm going to take a quick break from bragging on myself, and I will be right. Okie dokie, friends. Welcome back. So, again, just in case you didn't hear, the Tennessee Volunteers took down Alabama. And look, it was not pretty. It was an ugly game, especially in the first half. And I even said, I texted a couple of friends and even said, look, I'm just going to state the obvious here. We have turned the ball over three times in the first half. We have played terribly, not badly, terribly in two of three phases because the offense, even when they could move the ball, would turn the ball over in the red zone. Even when Nico was making accurate throws, they'd hit the receivers in the hands and just go right through them. And special teams was not playing well at all. So we were playing badly, very badly in two of three phases. The only thing that was saving us was the defense. But it's only 7-0. And the fact that we were able to maintain that, the fact that the defense was able to play so lights out and keep what had been an incredible Alabama offense. I mean, Jalen Milroe, I've said all year, I think should be getting more Heisman talk. I think he might be the best college quarterback in the country right now. Not saying that that's necessarily going to translate to the NFL, but Jalen Milroe is just a force, and we were able to largely contain him. And so the fact that it was 7-0 at halftime means there's definitely still hope here. And not to mention the fact that Josh Heupel has proven himself to be one of the best in the country at adjusting, at making, at game planning, both before games and at halftime, making necessary adjustments. And so there was reason to believe. And for that entire first half, it really felt a lot like the game a couple of years ago, where I remember multiple occasions in that great classic Hendon Hooker game, the last one in Knoxville, where it felt like, here we go, this is where we blow it, but they just kept coming back. And it felt like that a lot in the first half, especially of this game, where it was just like, okay, here we go. They're about to start pulling away. But no, the defense would make a big play. They would contain them. There would be a turnover. Milroe would make a bad decision, make a bad throw. And we kept them from doing that. We kept them from pulling away like they should have in the first half. And then in the second half, here we come. Now the offense is getting rolling. Now the line is blocking effectively, and Dylan Sampson is looking like Dylan Sampson. And it just, after that first touchdown, that was, I just felt like, okay, here we go. We're about to win this game. Because that's not Nick Saban. And I like Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a good coach. I know he's getting heat now for already having lost 2 games before November and blah blah blah. But the bar was going to be way too high for him anyway. There's no reason that people should be expecting him to be Nick Saban or just to fill those shoes and keep it rolling. I mean, I think he's already exceeded expectations by beating Georgia the way they did, by, being number one. Now, you lose to Vanderbilt, and that will do a lot, to knock you. But losing at Tennessee, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, we are for real right now. So I think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, but he's not Nick Saban. They were not going to come out and make even more defensive adjustments to, shut us down even further on offense. So when we scored that first touchdown after halftime, I was like, okay, I think we're going to win this game. And then it got really good, and it went back and forth, and it was a really fun game to watch there in the second half. A lot of penalties on both sides. Especially Alabama ended up, I know, with double-digit penalties in that game. It was it did not look like, an Alabama team with the way they were playing undisciplined. But what I would like to remind people of before they, bash Kalen DeBoer too much for that, last year under Nick Saban, the Tide were penalized a lot as well. So it's not just his fault. Like, that was one of the most penalized teams Nick Saban had ever had last year as well. So it's not like, they've just lost that Saban discipline or anything. Penalties have been a problem for them for the last couple of years. So, and that was the case this year. There were drives that were extended. There were key moments that penalties hurt them. And yeah, a couple of calls went our way. I'm not even going to lie. And that seems to be so rare, especially against Alabama, that, hey, it's worth acknowledging. It's worth mentioning. Now, I know that everybody's going to, all Alabama fans have been crying about that already, about, the missed defensive holding call and blah, blah, blah. But look, there were calls that were missed on their end as well. I mean, even with as many penalties that were called, they got away with a couple as well. So, look, in the end, Tennessee was the better team, just definitively. And once Nico started connecting with those receivers, especially on those deep passes, and what was crazy is, in the first half, he had clean pockets, he had time to throw, and he'd set his feet and he'd just overthrow them multiple times. But then when he finally hits on a deep pass, what is it we're doing? We're rolling him out to the right, making it an even more difficult pass. And I think that was intentional, and I think that was brilliant. I think Josh Heupel knew we've just maybe got to get him out of his head. Have him roll out to the right. That's going to give him plenty of room to see, room to roam and throw it. And it is going to make it a little bit harder, just traditionally rolling out and making a throw like that on the move than having your feet set. But maybe he needs that right now. And not to mention, it seemed like after he got his clock cleaned a little bit, and boy, that was a scary moment too, by the way, when he went down and then Gaston Moore comes in and throws one ridiculous pass into double coverage. But thank God Nico was okay and was able to come right back. And it seemed like he started playing better after that as well. So I think he just maybe needed to get out of his head a little bit. And after that, after the injury, and especially after that first deep pass connection and that first touchdown drive in the second half, he started playing a lot better. And obviously, the highlight was going to be that that touchdown pass to Brazel there at the end, which was a beautiful pass, beautiful catch, and ended up being the game-winning touchdown. And so I'm hoping that maybe now the offense is going to start hitting its stride. This is now 3 games in a row that we have been held scoreless in the first half. But you know what really matters? We've won 2 of those 3 games. And they were against Florida and Alabama. So, I'm not saying that trend is irrelevant because it's definitely concerning. But from the way that they played in the second half of this game, there is reason to be encouraged and reason to believe that maybe we're starting to figure some things out. And it's strange the way that we're winning this year because as well, another element of it is, under Josh Heupel, what has this team been defined by? It's been defined by high scoring, ultra speed turbo offense that gashes you in the run game and then takes advantage of deep shots and wide receiver screens on these super wide splits, and a defense that maybe can get one or two stops enough for the offense to win the game. This year it has been very, very different. We have not been moving at that turbo speed. We've been going fast still after, a first down or after a big gain on first down, but not nearly like we had been all throughout his tenure. And I think the assumption is that maybe it's just, trying to make sure that this, redshirt freshman quarterback, it doesn't make any mistakes, and we don't want to go so fast that, we get penalties or he makes bad decisions. I mean, at least that's been my assumption why we've kind of slowed down a little bit. But we're still one of the faster teams in the country, but not the fastest anymore. It's also been a team that's really been defined by the defense this year. I mean, our defense is undeniably one of, if not the best in the country. And the offense has been able to do just enough to win games. And the defense has really been what we've, hung our hats on this year. So it's very different than what Josh Heupel teams have been throughout his tenure. And, hey, I'm fine with it. I love it. If we can finally get the offense up to where the defense is, then yeah, we're going to be unstoppable, have a chance at winning the SEC, having a chance at winning the national championship. But it's been the opposite. We've been saying, for years now, if the defense could just catch up to where the offense is. Well, now the defense is there, but it's been the offense that's really been lagging in a little bit. Another difference between this team is that we've been a second half team, at least in conference play so far. And all throughout Josh Heupel's tenure, another defining characteristic had been getting off to these super fast starts. I mean, one of my favorites was going back a few years ago with that great Hendon Hooker team where we went to LSU and we were up like 21-0 still early in the first quarter in that one. Or at least I think that's what it was. I know we were up by 2 touchdowns within just a couple of minutes of that game. But, we'd been a fast start team. This year, we are getting off to bad starts, but we are making the necessary adjustments and coming out in the second half and doing enough to win. So, it's been very interesting. It's been a really, really different team than what we kind of become accustomed to under Josh Heupel. But you know what? That's a good thing. And I said this going back to the Oklahoma game when everybody was a little concerned that the offense wasn't doing as much and we weren't moving as fast and blah, blah, blah. I said, no, that's encouraging. The fact that we now know we can win in a variety of ways. We don't just have to put up 50 every time to win. We can win a grind it out, play great defense, run the ball kind of game. We can we still should be able to win a shootout with all the talent that we have on offense. I mean, we can win now in multiple ways. I think that's encouraging. So if Nico can get back to that accuracy that he had in the first month of the season and get back on the same page with his receivers, Dylan Sampson is one of the best running backs in the country, leading the SEC I know he's leading in rushing yards. I think he's also leading in rushing touchdowns. And we've got all SEC caliber talent all over the field with Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, Brazel, Thornton. All of those guys are potential star receivers. We've still got a really good offensive line, and obviously the defense is elite. And it's not just the front, the secondary. By the way, I know I've said this before, but it's worth saying again, Jermod McCoy should be an All-American. He should at least be all SEC this year, but that dude has been elite on the outside. I have absolutely loved watching him play, and it's every single game. He makes a play or two where it's just like on a big third down, he's glued to a receiver and knocks it away, or he makes a big interception, and he made a pick six a few weeks ago. Jermod McCoy is one of the best corners in the SEC and maybe in the country, and it is worth mentioning again. I love him. And that was the question, was really the secondary. We knew the defensive line was going to be great. We knew the linebackers should be really good. The secondary has been as good as we could have hoped, really. It's still not as good as the front, but it's been definitely good enough. And Jermod McCoy, God, he got hurt too, didn't he? I think he ended up coming back, right? I need to look that up. God, I hope he did, because I remember he got hurt in the first half of that game. Um, I think he ended up coming back. I forgot about that. I need to look that up. But anyway, I really, really hope he's okay, because losing him would be, yeah, and losing Keenan Pili, we knew was going to be was really going to hurt us as well. But the other guys have stepped up and played well. It has still been a big loss, not just his play, but also his leadership. It sucked, but injuries happen. That's the way football is. And the defensive front, James Pierce went down at one point. Norman Lott went down at one point, but I think all of them ended up being okay. So hopefully the defense can stay healthy. Squirrel White, I know, also is banged up. We might need to rest him for a little bit. We've got an open week this week, and then I'm not sure who our next game is. But I know we've got Georgia here coming up before too long. But we've got time for hopefully Squirrel White, Jermod McCoy, some of the defensive line guys, and whoever needs to get healthy to get healthy. This bye week is coming at a great time, I think. And so anyway, I'm very, very excited after being concerned and worried after the Arkansas loss, and then a little concerned after us barely getting by Florida, who now looks like they're starting to get a little bit on track as well. And now that Oklahoma, both of our best wins prior to this one right here, do not look as good anymore. Oklahoma does not look good at all. North Carolina State does not look good at all. And prior to Saturday, those were our two best wins, I think. So, it was we were starting to get a little worried, I think. But I said before the season started, and I continue to be correct about this, that I think we're going to win two of these big three games this year. And I wasn't including. I mean, I know Florida is usually it's Florida, Georgia, Alabama, but I did not include that in our big games for this year. I said our big games this year were at Oklahoma, Alabama at home, and at Georgia. And I said I think we will win two of those three, but I think we will also probably lose one that we're not supposed to. And all along, it was that friggin' at Arkansas game that stood out. And sure enough, that was the one that got us. But we don't need to be sleeping on Vandy either. I mean, they are for real. Which, by the way, I don't know if you looked at the AP poll, I know that a lot of people probably just kind of glance at it, see who the top teams are, see where your team landed. Go see who's number 25 right now in the AP poll, sitting there at, I believe, 5-2 this year. The Vanderbilt Commodores. Good for them, man. That is so cool to see. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to take a quick break. I don't. Yeah, I'm going to take a quick break and hopefully talk about everything I wanted to before I run out of time. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So there were just a couple other things I wanted to touch on from college football Saturday. Number one, I think Miami should be ranked higher than they are right now. They're currently at 6th. I would have put them at 4, maybe even 3. I think they're better than Penn State. Right now, they look like they might be better than Ohio State. I don't know that they should be ahead of Texas, who is currently 5, but yeah, Miami is a 6-0 ACC team with a Heisman, one of the Heisman front runners at quarterback. I mean, they are the real deal. Now, so far, they haven't really played the same level of competition as, SEC teams. I don't think they haven't played Clemson. I don't know if they even do play Clemson in the regular season, but I'm sure they'll have to in the ACC championship, if nothing else. But from what I have seen, I feel like Miami is the real deal, and they deserve to be ranked higher. And then the other big game, obviously, of the week, the one that took most of the attention away from the third Saturday in October, was Georgia and Texas. And you guys know my feelings about this. I said on Friday, I don't care who they are playing. If I see the Georgia Bulldogs under Kirby Smart as a 5-point underdog, give me that all day. I don't care who or where they are playing. And so, and that ended up being correct. And Georgia has now, ever since the second half of that Alabama game, I think really come out and established that we're not going anywhere. And I said too, what a crazy world it seems like right now that Oregon seems to run the Big Ten and Texas might be running the SEC. But I think I also said, but let's wait a minute because they got a big one coming up this week, a team that feels like they should still have that claim. And man, Georgia just dominated them. And I didn't even get to watch most of the game because we left. We had to go. We had to leave for a little while after the Tennessee game. But I was listening to it on the radio and trying to keep up with it where I could. And I mean, and I afterwards saw all the highlights and everything. Georgia just dominated them. I mean, to the point where Sarkisian even seemed to panic a little bit and pull his starting quarterback and put in Manning, only to go back to Quinn Ewers, a few drives later. I mean, they just had them flustered. They were living in the backfield, just destroying their quarterbacks. I mean, that looked like the Georgia that we have come to know over the last few years against a good team. But yeah, and that's not to say that Texas hasn't been good. I've felt like Texas has been underrated for most of this year, and I think I even said on my Friday podcast, if I lose this one, I will eat my words and I will no longer bet against Texas. But I will say that they have been better than I expected them to be this year, no doubt. And they are for real, and they are a real contender to win the SEC and to win the national championship. And they may get a rematch with Georgia. Their schedule the rest of the way is really light. Like I've said, it is the easiest SEC schedule I can remember seeing. And the only true test on it was this one, which they failed horribly. But I do still think that they are a very good team and a team that could, has all the talent, has good coaching, that could still make a run at the national championship and, almost certainly will be in the playoffs. But Georgia is, right at the right time, I think, starting to hit their stride. Carson Beck still has been disappointing, I think, if you're a Georgia fan. But, if he ever really gets on track, man, they're going to be unstoppable. The defense has finally seemed to get on track. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about that was something that I don't think's been covered enough, but whenever the Tennessee fans threw all that shit on the field, it was all over every news thing everywhere. And I was so embarrassed. I hated that they did that. It was just so ridiculous and so embarrassing and so classless. But then the Texas fans did the same thing, and that's whatever. But what's crazy about it, and Kirby Smart spoke to this after the game, the call that happened was a pass interference call on the defense that negated an interception that really was a big moment in the game. And it was it was a bad call. It was undeniably, it was a bad call. But then the fans lose their minds, start throwing shit on the field. They have to pause play. I don't know. I didn't see it because, like I said, I wasn't at home at this point. But, I saw the highlights and everything after the fact. They had to stop play. I assume they took maybe the players back into the locker room. I don't know if they did, but it at least had to stop play for a while they calmed everybody down and got all the stuff off the field. And then what happened after it? The officials come out and change the call. That is mind-boggling. Because A, that ain't a reviewable thing. This is not that crazy year in the NFL where they made pass interference reviewable. That is not something that they can go back and change once they've made the call. Now, I know that they've started I don't know what they've done this year, but I know that we have seen it in college football where there have been a lot of reviewable things where, whoever's watching will buzz down and say, no, we need to change that. And they change it really quickly and move on. But on penalties, I don't think that's supposed to happen. I mean, that's just opening up a whole can of worms if we're now going to start making penalties reviewable. And that's what I said about the whole thing in the NFL when they did that for that 1 year. And I also said I think they're intentionally doing this with pass interference, which is such a subjective call, because they know that it's going to be a complete failure. And so that'll shut everybody up about reviewing penalties for a few more years. I really do think the NFL did that intentionally. So, especially for these college officials to go back and say, no, that was a bad call on something that, as far as I know, is not supposed to be reviewable. And especially after the crowd has just thrown a tantrum like that, and then you give them what they want, what kind of precedent is that setting? I mean, yeah, it's going to start happening now. It'll happen again this season, as a matter of fact. Just you watch. Because the officials have now told everybody, if you pitch enough of a fit and you start throwing shit on the field, we'll change the call for you. Now, obviously, it's not as, that's not what they're saying, but they're saying that yes, now even something that is not reviewable by instant replay can now be changed if the crowd throws a tantrum. I mean, that that may be the biggest thing that came away from that huge game. I mean, honestly, if it goes the way it could go from what happened there, that's bad, man. Anyway, I'm running out of time here. I'm going to take one more quick break because I did want to dive into some actual NFL football before the show's over as well. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So this is going to be a quick segment because I'm about to stop and get gas here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to get in as much as I could. I'm serious. I'm sticking by what I said. I'm not even talking about the Titans in this episode because what is there to talk about? I even placed a little money line bet on us because I thought, at least with Mason Rudolph in, we shouldn't beat ourselves as blatantly as we had, but we still just and what's crazy is I had a chance to cash that out at halftime, and I really considered it, and I didn't do it, but whatever. Um, but man, they just fell apart in the second half, and it's officially tank time in Tennessee. It's to the point now where yes, the best thing that can happen is we continue to lose and maybe get a number one pick, even in a year where the quarterback class is not super strong. Cam Ward is climbing boards. Shador Sanders is starting to grow on me a little bit from he continues to look more and more like an NFL quarterback as this year has gone along. Um, I've been waiting for Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck to step up, but neither of them have, not even close. So right now it looks like it's Sanders and Ward as the top two quarterbacks in this class. Um, Even though I said I like Miami and I think that they should be rated higher, I haven't or ranked higher. I haven't watched a lot of them this year, so I'll need to start paying more attention to them. With Cam Ward having the potential to be a Titan next year, but yeah, we definitely need to be in the quarterback market. We definitely need to be doing. I mean, let's go ahead and trade DeAndre Hopkins. Give him the opportunity to go to Kansas City or somewhere where he can win and where he can contribute. Um, and we also, I would say, we could maybe trade Harold Landry. I'm sure we could get at least a second round pick for him. And let's just go ahead and let's embrace what's obviously happening here. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the Titans, and here I go. But that's just the truth, man. The best thing we can do right now is let's start acquiring picks. Let's maybe even consider shutting some guys down. Well, maybe not yet, but you don't want to risk any major injury to a Jeffrey Simmons, to a Calvin Ridley, or one of the left side of the offensive line, the guys that we know are still going to be there next year. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about the Titans. And with that all being said, I am now about to pull into the gas station. So I'm going to take one more quick break while I fuel up here, and then we'll dive into some NFL games. And I will give you my picks for these ridiculous Monday night doubleheader that they're doing again for some reason. I'll be right back. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. So while I'm stopped here, I was just looking over some of the scores from last week's game. From yesterday's games. The Patriots finally, or excuse me, the Jaguars actually looked like the Jaguars people hoped they were going to get this year, albeit against maybe the worst team in the league. And the Patriots, they won that 32-16. The Seahawks waxed the Falcons. in a game where I'm pretty sure Atlanta was favored in that one. And again, I've said this all year. I'm just not very high on the Falcons. Everybody thought that they were just a quarterback away from being a championship contender last year. I was not one of those people. I just didn't see it. I mean, they have a lot of problems on defense. They've got some really good skill position players, obviously Robinson and Pitts and Drake London, but excuse me, then they added a couple more, and they got a really good game. I started to say game managing quarterback, which I mean, he's that, but I don't mean that in the negative way. But everybody expected them, not me again, but everybody expected them to run away with this division this year. They are not doing it. Tampa Bay is, in fact. And so, yeah, I'm sorry to all my Falcons friends out there, but they've got a lot to figure out. Obviously, the Bills came alive in the second half and destroyed my Titans. The Bengals covered against Cleveland. Deshaun Watson also got hurt in that game, which now gives Cleveland the excuse to change quarterbacks without having to make it a controversy. So, but honestly, I think they were still wanting to keep Deshaun Watson in because they could do that and tank without saying we're tanking. So really, it might have ended up being a bad thing for them. I guess Jameis Winston came in. I don't know. But yeah, I think Deshaun Watson, from what I saw, that was an Achilles injury. Um, Bear with me for just one more moment while I'm putting the gas pump back up here, getting back in the vehicle. Um, the Packers beat the Texans in a game that I really wanted to watch. I don't know why. I feel like they screwed the schedule up this weekend. I don't know. I guess it's too early for them to be flexing games, but the Packers Texans game was one of the biggest games of the year, with really the two hot young teams in each conference facing off against each other. And I wanted to watch that one, but it was on at the same time as the Titans and the other really big game of the week, which was Detroit and Minnesota. Um, and so, yeah, it felt like that. I wish they could have flexed one of those or both of those to maybe one of them at least being a 4 o'clock game. But the Packers did end up pulling that one out at home, 24-22. So they didn't cover because I think they were a 2.5 point favorite in that one. And then, as I said, the Colts beat the Dolphins. The Colts with Anthony Richardson just don't look that good, though. The Dolphins without Tua are dumpster fire. And the Giants, the Eagles handled their business against the Giants. Hey, friends, sorry, I had a little interruption there. I had a timer go off on my phone. All right, so I'm stopped at a red light now, so I'm going to look at, yeah, so the Eagles handled their business against the Giants. That was one that I kind of wanted to take because I think they were like a 3 point favorite against the Giants, but you just cannot trust the Eagles this year. But they did take care of business in that one. The Rams, I was surprised they were a 7 point favorite against Oakland. They did not, or against Las Vegas, the Raiders. They did not end up covering in that one, but they did win 20-15. The Commanders just continue to look like the best team in the NFC East, which you guys know I have been in. I feel like I need to admit this every week. I was wrong about Jaden Daniels. Um, the only caveat to that is let's hope he can keep it up, because the reason I wasn't high on him going in as a draft prospect was because so much of his game was predicated on running, and even with the success of Lamar and other guys, it just felt like someone like that reminds me a lot of Robert Griffin, and I'm afraid that he might get hurt. He's got that small frame. I'm afraid his career won't last as long, but man, he has been unbelievable. I mean, he's may have already locked up Rookie of the Year and is a legitimate MVP candidate as a rookie, but they destroyed the Panthers. And then obviously the Chiefs beat the 49ers, which that was a game that I won a lot of money on, not just the bets, the straight and the parlays, but also had Kareem Hunt as the first touchdown scorer, which has hit twice now in back-to-back games. Kareem Hunt has been the first touchdown scorer in the Chiefs game, and depending on what the odds are, there's a good chance I'll take it again next week, but we'll see. I imagine they will adjust the odds to where it's probably a lot lower next week. And then these Jets, the poor Jets. They got their guy. They got Devontae, but it was after they fired their coach inexplicably. And man, I honestly feel bad for them. As much as I'm sick of hearing about them and think they are so overrated and so overcovered, I still do kind of feel bad for them at this point. Especially guys like Garrett Wilson, who's got to be just in the most awkward position right now, thinking that, what we really need, what can come in and save us is a really good receiver. And he's sitting there like, dude, I'm right here. But you know what? Look, I said a few weeks ago when the Devontae trade talk was really heating up that I think that might be enough for them. If they can acquire Devontae, given how big Aaron Rodgers is on chemistry and on pre-snap adjustments, if they can get Devontae, if their defense can start playing more consistently, then maybe that will be enough to where, because I've said all along that they are a fringe playoff team, but if they can add someone like him, that might be enough to put them into the potential contender category. But no, it is not. And that was also before they fired their head coach when I was saying that. After that happened, I said the Jets are pretty much done. I don't know why Devontae would even want to go there now, but he's not going to make a difference because, who's running the show? I mean, we all know it's Aaron Rodgers, but you still got to have a figurehead there. Anyway, the poor Jets. And another thing, by the way, that I was right about that you may remember is I've said the way Mike Tomlin has handled this quarterback situation all season long has been puzzling at best. But I have been saying if I think of all people, Mike Tomlin maybe deserves a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. And I even went into the reasons why in one episode last week, because he's consistently been one of the best coaches in all of football. He knows his team, he knows his quarterbacks, he knows his situation better than any of us do on the outside. And so even though it's puzzling to us, and it seems like they're 4-2 with Justin Fields and he's good enough, and we don't like, it doesn't seem to make sense. I do feel like he deserves a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. And sure enough, he knew what he was doing. And this was maybe the most competent that the Steelers offense has looked all year under Russell Wilson, a guy who is just a better able to just manage the game and play the quarterback position in a traditional way than Justin Fields, whose game is, really exciting, but it's also really predicated on heavy runs. Defenses know they can stack the box. They know he's going to be hesitant to pull the trigger on deep passes, and even when he does, he's not nearly as good at it as Russell Wilson, who's kind of made a career of it. So even though Russell Wilson maybe isn't quite the guy he was in Seattle, I do think just in this one tiny sample size that we have, the offense looked a lot better under him. They've already got a championship caliber defense, and so the Steelers might be a team to watch out for now. I'm going to pause one more time, take one more quick break, and then we'll dive into the upcoming Monday night games. Alrighty, welcome back, friends. So we have two more games coming up tonight. We have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, two 4-2 teams that are legit Super Bowl contenders. I mean, I think the Ravens, right now are right up there. It feels like there are three teams that have reason to feel like they are the best team in the NFL. I think it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Lions, not necessarily in that order. But it does feel like right now those are the three top teams in the league. The Buccaneers are maybe on that next tier, but this is going to be a big test for them. I've made a little bit of money on Tampa Bay this year because I have been a bit of a believer in them. But in this one, I'm taking Baltimore all the way. They're currently a 3.5-point favorite. I would probably take that. Also, you guys know I'm not usually big on betting totals, but this one is 49.5 currently. I think that's going to go over. So it might be worth maybe taking the Ravens either money line or, maybe 2.5 and then going over that total, or maybe even bringing it down a little bit to like 47. And that should get you a pretty good little odds on a same game parlay. But I do think that the Ravens will win this one, and I do think that there will probably be a fair amount of scoring in it. The other game, which I think is just going to be on the ESPN app, maybe, is the Chargers, currently a 1.5 point favorite over the Arizona Cardinals. Now, that's one where normally I would take the Cardinals, or excuse me, the Chargers, but I have just stayed away from betting on Cardinals games this year because they have just been really unpredictable. At times, they have looked almost as good as anybody. At times, they have looked as bad as anybody. They're 2-4, so their record says that really, they should probably be an even bigger underdog in this one. But they just have the potential at any point to just go off, it feels like, in a game. So that's one that I'm probably just in and of itself. I would want to take the Chargers, but I would be a little hesitant to bet against the Cardinals. They're kind of like South Carolina has been this year in the SEC. They can just, at times, they can be excellent. At times, they can just be puzzling and bad. Um, but there is a bet right now on Hard Rock that I did already take, that has, it's both the Ravens and Chargers to win just straight up. And what were the odds on that? It was like plus 195, I think. So, you bet a $50 bet on it, you're going to win almost 150. I did take that one. I think that's worth taking given that it's boosted the way that it is. But outside of that, I would say take the Ravens and the 3.5 points. Even though like I said, I think the Buccaneers are good. I just think the Ravens are starting to look like a juggernaut. Like the juggernaut we thought that they could be this year. And also, maybe the total is worth messing with in that one. But definitely, I would take the Ravens. And then if you want to maybe take a chance on the Chargers, they should win that one. But the Cardinals are just, like I said, crazy. Anyway, so I guess my official advice on this one would be to just, if there's one bet that I'm confident in, it would be that Ravens, and I think they will win by more than 3.5. Hopefully the spread will go down because I always like betting. I'm much more comfortable taking 2.5 than I am 3.5. Obviously, because that means if it comes down to a game-winning field goal and a tied game, then you win by 3. I'm much more comfortable with that. But I do think that they will win by at least 3, hopefully more than that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that game. Anyway, I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Check out the YouTube channel if you haven't. We've put new stuff on there, including Arlo and Jack doing the third Saturday in October. We're going to continue to try to do that as our other little series on the YouTube channel and just have them preview whatever game is coming up. So this week there's not going to be a Vols game, so maybe we'll just have them preview a Titans game or have them pick something else they want to do and have them play that out on either Madden or EA College Football. Check out the YouTube channel. Tell your friends about this show. Listen to my betting advice. Tell them to listen to my betting advice. And hopefully I haven't just jinxed us all. Anyway, hope everyone has a fantastic Monday, and I'll talk to you again soon. Love you. Bye.